We have formed a quorum. It is also time to start the meeting, so I call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Paper CB bracket 2 1971/13 to 14. A copy of the draft minutes has been sent out to members. We haven't received any proposed amendments. Can we confirm the minutes? All right, thank you. Minutes confirmed. Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has sent out 2 papers. And they've been attached to the agenda issued on the 22nd of July 2014. They are, respectively, a referral from the Public Complaints Office of the LegCo Secretariat on issues relating to the support services for street sleepers, and referral from LegCo Members meeting with Yuen Long District Council members on 22nd of May 2014 concerning construction of a swimming pool complex in Tin Shui Wai North. Without further ado, we move on to the third item on the agenda, signature project of Wong District Council. Administration, please. As we may involve a funding request, so in accordance with rules of procedure, Rule 83A, there is a need for members to declare interest. So I would like to draw your attention to that rule. So if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest concerning any matter before us, and if you cannot move any amendment or motion, or you cannot move amendment or motions or speak unless you have disclosed the nature of the relevant interest. Any declaration of interest? No? All right. Paper 1973/13 to 14 bracket 02 is an updated background from the Secretariat. First of all, Mr. Cheng Sing, Secretary for Home Affairs, please walk us through the paper. Thank you. In the past, we came here to brief you on the signature projects. In other words, $100 million has been earmarked for each of the 18 district councils, so that in the light of the district needs, we can launch a project which is sustainable. And all of them are being planned, publicized, and monitored by the relevant district councils. All of them have already agreed on the signature projects. 27 in total will be launched. For the one in Kwai Ching, on the 12th of July this year, it has got the approval of the PWSC and the FC of the LegCo. Today we come here to talk about the projects in Wong Tai Sin. There are 2 items. First of all, expansion and improvement of Wong Tai Sin Square. The other one is about the enhancement of leisure facilities of Moss Park. So this is the first works-based project. We are here to listen to your views, and we hope that in the coming legislative session, we can approach the PWSC ASAP, and then we'll seek funding approval from the FC. I would like to defer to the chairman of the Wong Tai Sin District Council, Mr. Lee Hong, to give you the details. So before Mr. Lee speaks, I would like to introduce the other officers in attendance as well. Mr. Patrick Lee, Deputy Director of Home Affairs, Mrs. Jo Choi, District Officer, Wong Tai Sin HAD, Mr. Lee Hong, Chairman of the Wong Tai Sin District Council, as well as Mr. Ken Chi Ho, Chairman of the District Facilities Management Committee under the Wong Tai Sin District Council. Mr. Lee, Chair of the Wong Tai Sin District Council, please. Thank you, Chairman, members of the panel, and Secretary for Home Affairs. Good afternoon. Well, we'd like to expand and improve the Wong Tai Sin Square. This is because it is above the Wong Tai Sin MTR station. It occupies a very good location. It is also a landmark for Wong Tai Sin. It is a very good venue for local organizations to hold activities. But then there are certain inadequacies. First of all, we haven't got a permanent and covered performance stage. Many smaller organizations have to spend a lot of money on setting up a stage and covering the stage for one-off uses. As a result, the resources given to them cannot all go to the actual organization of the activities. In addition, it means that we are wasting the resources and it is not environmentally friendly. Moreover, for the Wong Tai Sin Square, relatively speaking, it is small in size. We have the linkage with the Wong Tai Sin MTR station as well as the Sha Tin Pass Road. We have got the advanced work and we have a covered walkway, and it takes up about 10% of the square. In other words, we have got 10% less space for organization of activities. We would like to expand and improve Wong Tai Sin Square. Whatever we can do, we have already done so recently. We've made use of the Minor Works Projects vote to introduce some landscape improvement. And since the announcement by the administration to give us $100 million to launch the signature project scheme, within a short period of time, Wong Tai Sin was able to get the consensus across the political spectrum to make use of the funding to further improve Wong Tai Sin Square. I'd like to defer to Mr. Ken Chi-ho, Chairman of the DFMC of Wong Tai Sin District Council, to walk us through the details. Mr. Ken, please. Well, after the announcement of the signature project scheme, Wong Tai Sin District Council has been following this up actively. When it came to the selection of items, well, for many years, Wong Tai Sin District residents have always been holding such an aspiration to expand and improve the square. So when we heard news of the signature project scheme, we followed this up positively. In a few months' time, up to May, there were altogether 12 meetings to deal with the item. We decided on the plan, and we also worked on the works details. Now, the entirety of the Wong Tai Sin community has been making good use of the square. The utilization rate is high, and members from different political parties and alliances have also been using the square, and therefore everybody is in support of the project. As the chair of the DFMC, in March 2013, together with our chairman, we did consult the views of our 4 area committees. We secured the unanimous support of the 4 area committees. And maybe we can invite our DO, Mrs. Choi, to elaborate on the details of the project. Yes, Mrs. Choi, thank you. I will briefly talk about the information about the expansion and improvement of Wong Tai Sin Square, like the scope of works, the budget, as well as the timetable. First of all, a word on the scope of works. We would like to expand the square by about 15 meters to its north. Upon expansion, the space available will be increased by more than 40%. And then in the eastern portion, there will be a permanent and covered performance stage. And there will be audio or a sound system and changing rooms. And then for the spectator area, we are going to construct a tensile fabric cover. And we have to reprovision and widen the ramp leading to Sha Tin Pass Road. as a result of the expansion improvement. And then for the planters, flagpoles, lamps and benches, etc. have to be relocated. Having regard to the expansion works, there will be U-channels and downpipes to be provided so as to channel the rainwater away from the square. In paragraph 3, we have given you the details of the scope of works. For the site plan and the artist's impressions, they can be found in Annex 1 and Annex 2 to the paper for your reference. A word on the financial implication. It will cost us $31 million in MOD prices. Timetable. If we secure your support, then we plan to refer the proposal to the PWC towards the end of this year, as well as the FC of the LegCo respectively. If we secure your support, there is the approval of the for the funding by the FC, then we plan to commence the construction works in April 2015 for completion in March 2016. Thank you, Chairman. Members, does anybody wish to ask any questions? I just want to have a head count so that I have an idea about the time needed. 5 members, Alice Mack, myself, and Jen Guokchu, and Deputy Chair would like to ask questions. Who else would like to ask questions? If not, then I think we can have 5 minutes for questions and answers each. Alice Mack, she's not in the room for the time being, so it's my turn. I have a question here. I understand that the project has been supported by the District Council as well as the relevant political parties. I myself also support this project. If I may take this opportunity to ask the administration this question. So far, only 2 district councils have come up with a plan under the signature project scheme. For the one before us today, it is but one of the 2. They plan to do 2 items under the scheme. So question for the admin. We have already approved the signature project scheme. We've been told that there wouldn't be any deadline, but still I want to know the following. That is, what is the progress of the other district councils? We'd like to be given an overall view, so please take this opportunity to give us the latest position. Please tell us when you're going to come back to us. Will individual district councils approach us for individual projects? And that would mean that it would be quite time-consuming.
Perhaps Mr. Lee? As the Secretary said, there are altogether 27 projects. The one in Kuanqing has been supported by the Financial Committee. There are also 20 projects. All these are mainly works projects. We're following up with the advanced work because this is under the works project scheme. So we have to conduct a detailed feasibility studies before we go to the LegCo, and on top of that we have to consult the relevant parties before we go to the FC. We reckon that the majority of the projects will be submitted to the relevant panels after the summer recess. Of course, for certain period of time there may be more projects in the pipeline than others. During the summer recess, we will take an overview of the latest situation. We will discuss with the panel to see what is the best way to introduce them. Say, for example, group them under different districts or under one paper when we consult members. That depends on the latest position and how many projects will be introduced to panels. Do you have any preliminary plans? The latest plan, as we're talking about 25 outstanding ones, the majority of them will go to the panel in the next legislative year. A follow-up question about the specific projects. I attended meetings related to similar facilities in district councils. And I learned that very often they have to hire sound systems. So in this Wong Tai Sin project, have you considered putting in permanent sound system for performance so that money can be saved in each event without having by not having to hire sound systems? Thank you for the question. Yes, indeed. It is under the scope of the project. There is a sound system on the stage with amplifiers, microphones, cables, plant room. So all these supporting facilities will be put in place. So fundamental facilities will be there. That's right. Next, Ms. Alice Mack, 5 minutes question and answer. The FTU supports the project. I'm also a district councillor. I understand that if we are to implement such a project, it's no easy task. We need the cooperation of a district council, and that itself is not easy. And I have a question. In the course of project implementation, well, I don't know whether I'm asking questions that have already been asked. During the works period, will there be inconvenience caused to existing users? How long will they be unable to use the facilities? And apart from this project, are there other projects? Or is it the case that the $100 million will be spent on this one single project? And what about the implementation pace or timetable? And I'd like to hear from the director. Is this the second project after the Kwai Ting one? What about the position of the other districts? What problems has the Bureau encountered in the implementation of these projects? Well, your second question is the first question asked by me. Let's see if the administration would like to add. Well, I would defer to Mrs. Choi for the first few questions. We have reached consensus with the 18 districts as to what project will be implemented. The remaining ones are works projects, and they have to follow the established procedure. As the director said, that in the next legislative year, in 2014-15, these remaining projects will be introduced to the panel. The other questions. During the works period to the north, there will be hoarding to the north of the square because that will be the works area. To the south, there is no impact from the works, so people can still use the southern part of the square. When it comes to major events, perhaps they will have to be put on hold during the works period, which will last for about a year, between April 2015 to March 2016. $100 million will be spent on 2 projects. Apart from this expansion and improvement of Wong Tai Sin Square, the other one is the enhancement of leisure facilities of Moores Park. So the 2 projects have been fully discussed by members in the district council because there has been a lot of debate in other areas, and still some members might not be happy with the ones selected. In relation to these 2 projects, they have got majority support in the council. Next, Ms. Ann Chang. This is a brilliant idea. And I've attended a number of these activities. I have not been to this particular square. Very often I saw that performers are performing in open air. But sometimes I see that there are venues with a cover, but the spectator area is not covered. You have to take into account the needs of the general public. If the venue is exposed to the elements, it will be quite tough for the spectators as to be sitting right under a blazing sun. I have two questions. One, the performance stage and a tensile fabric cover. What's that fabric? How long will it last? Just a couple of years? My second question. I see that the additional recurrent cost is $0.5 million per annum. Where will this come from? Mrs. Choi. The first question is about the cover over the spectator area. We use tensile fabric cover. You might have seen it before in some outdoor venues, say Po Kwong Chun Road, the open air performance area in the Wong Tai Sin, and the Marine Museum. That's the fabric used. As far as we know, the fabric itself is very long-lasting and very suitable to outdoor use. It's opaque, so when the sun comes out, there is it provides shade, and it turns the sun rays into soft ones. And when it rains, it cleans the fabric, so maintenance is low. And as a result, it's rather environment friendly, and the maintenance cost is low. We're talking about $500,000 as recurrent cost. We have already got the funding approval from the FSTB. Every year, an additional $0.5 million will be spent on a recurrent cost, mainly on maintenance and repair on plants and machines. If this is good, I know that there are some other squares or plazas in Hong Kong for the enjoyment of the public. And so far, they are uncovered. Well, at least over the spectator area, there is nothing. That is the case for a lot of venues in Kowloon West. So if this proves to be a good idea, would you consider adopting the same idea in Kowloon West? Perhaps the department will take this up, implement the works for the benefit of the public. We've heard the view. Next, Mr. Peter Chung. A number of questions. First, is this a permanent square? I am concerned that a few years down the line, the government is going to take this over and put buildings on it. Second question, maintenance and management. Is it under the purview of the Home Affairs Department? Number 3, are there any limitations on on the eligibility of organizers? Well, this project is the Wong Tai Sin Square. Is it the case that you will come to us later with information about the Moores Park? We know very well about the Wong Tai Sin Square. It is under the management of the HAD. Moores Park, however, is under the management of the LCSD. So after the improvement project, is it going to fall under the management of the LCSD? We're talking about $60 million. Or is it the case that it will not be under the LCSD? We may not be talking about this today, but I'd like some further information. Mrs. Choi, thank you for the question. This is an LCSD venue. It's permanent. Management and maintenance is under the purview of the LCSD. When we plan the project, we work together with the LCSD over, say for example, the working out of the additional recurrent cost. As to application for use of the venue, it will be the same approach as application for other venues. 2 months in advance, an application has to be made to the LCSD. In relation to the enhancement of leisure facilities of Moss Park, we reckon that in April 2015 we will first go to the panel to consult members. Thank you. I'm concerned about Moss Park. Perhaps I will ask more later, but this is my view. Well, there is an open air plaza there under the LCSD. You will improve it. And of course, I think it's better for the responsible department to take that up so that you can save the $60 million and spend it elsewhere. Is it the case that you don't know where to spend it and that's why you spend it here? This is not something newly provided. Mr. Lee, in relation to the open air plaza in Moss Park, there is a cover over the spectator area, but none over the stage. In January every year, there is an event lasting 4 to 5 days where shows are staged, and we have at least 10,000 people benefiting from it. And very often the organizers will have to spend some money to erect covers, a main part of the improvement project is to link up the cover of the spectator area with the stage.
Maybe Mr. Lee misunderstood me. I think it's a good idea to build it. The question is who should pick up the bill, because it is a LCSD facility. Now, the Wong Tai Sin Square is being managed by LCSD. It's good for you to improve it. But then for Moss Park, they've got the facility there. So you're simply improving Moss Park. So you need to improve it. But then if you spend $60 million on it, that means that you will be $60 million short for other purposes. I think your point is noted. Deputy Chair, in relation to the application and approval of the funding request, I think we need to go through a number of stages. So probably we will be seeing you again at a PwC meeting and FC meeting. Maybe I can raise a few questions with you, and if you have already got the answer, please share your information with us. First of all, the ramp. As a result of the expansion of the square, it means that you need to provide the ramp or reprovision the ramp. As item 7 on the site plan. And then for the stage, to the right hand side of the stage, we've also got another ramp for the disabled. Now you are reprovisioning and widening the ramp, but then for the barrier-free access to the stage, it has been relocated onto the other side. In other words, the disabled or wheelchair-bound would have to make a detour before going back to the stage. So I just want to know whether it is necessary to make such a change, as this would call for a longer journey on the part of the wheelchair users. Another question is about the changing the dressing room. Is there toilet there? Is it a unisex? And is there a toilet for disabled? I'm sure at the PwC meeting you will be asked this question. I'm also a member of the PwC, and I can sort of anticipate that questions of such a nature will be put to you. They will also be interested to know about the ratio of the toilet cubicles for male and female users. And then for the Tencel fabric cover, we have been given the impression that it is good and value for money. But unfortunately, the university that I work at has had this bad experience. The fabric cover was destroyed during a number 8 typhoons, as well as number 10 typhoon. So, not that I'm objecting to something which looks modern and nicer, but then what about maintenance and repair? And what about the wind resistance power? Have you tested it? Now, my understanding is that even for a Tencel fabric cover, in an outdoor area surrounded by high-rise buildings, cannot withstand the strong wind during the typhoon. And I understand that it is a very popular place, it's highly utilized. So please give us the data. Now it is under the management of the LCSD. Please tell us about the utilization rate as well as the usage pattern, whether the applicants have to queue up to get to their turn to use the square. Could I like to answer this question? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Chen, for your question. Your first question was about the barrier-free access to the stage. It is on the right-hand side. We did consider this point. Now for the ramp, well, there is already a ramp in existence. We're simply reprovisioning it, moving it further to the north. And currently the ramp is very narrow, measuring 1.1 meter only. In the future, it will be widened to 3 meters. It has to be on the northern side. And the ramp is very close to the stage. Now, if we are to put it on the left-hand side, the area there will be too crowded, and usually it would be the officiating guests who will be using the ramp to go onto the stage. So we believe that having it located on the right-hand side of the stage would be fine. As to the changing rooms, yes, we do have a toilet, one for the male and another toilet for the female. And in fact, it is also a barrier-free facility. And then another question was about the Tencel fabric cover. We note your concern, and we understand that you have had this experience. So go back to have a word with the architect to find out whether the supplier has more information so as to avoid the problem that you've referred to. For the facility at Ho Kong Village Road, a similar structure has been built for several years and we haven't encountered any problems. We did have the figures from the LCSD. Every year we have 100 days out of 365 days when we have a large-scale event in a year. Your time is up. You have overrun a lot. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I need to declare interest. I'm also a member of the Wong Tai Sin District Council. Just now, members asked many questions. I try to put on under the head and try to answer this question. For a barrier-free venue, usually the wheelchair users will use the entrance in the north to enter the square. That's my experience. Of course, if you come up from the MTR station, if you want to go to the square, you have to make use of the Wong Tai Sin Temple instead of taking a detour and come from Nong Cheng Road. So just a word about the geographical details. There was this question from Mr. Zheng as to why the Moss Park project shouldn't be referred back to the LCSD. Just a few years ago, Moss Park underwent a major overhaul. Now the LCSD used resources to renovate the Moss Park, but our experience shows that maybe we can sort of have some touching up so as to make it better. Now, Moss Park has got 800 seats in the spectator stand. In the future, there will be 1,500. It is quite difficult to come by. We don't always have such a lot of venues, so we support the item. LCSD has just had one renovation, and I think it will be difficult to get the LCSD to do it again in the near future. And it won't be cheap. It will cost us $60 million. So if we try to get money by competing with other claims, we have to wait a long time. And therefore, we try to spend the money on this project as well. And then, of course, one merit is that the District Council as well as the other local organizations have always been using the two venues for public activities, and that's why across the board we have the consensus, and we don't want to give rise to any disputes, and we have supported the projects. So I declared interest. I elaborated on the points in the capacity as a DC member, and I also support the item. Anything else? Anything from the administration? Nothing. I would like to thank Mr. Wu. I'm grateful to other members. It shows that there is a consensus in the District Council. Mr. Leung Chi-Chang, I also support this item. Different political parties and alliances have given thorough discussion. Mr. Wu also confirmed this point. I was about to ask a question, but I think I don't need to ask any questions anymore because he has given us full justifications. For the information before us, I think it is very detailed. In the beginning, I thought that it was quite scanty, but in fact, when I turned to the back of the paper, I found that we have got the site plans, etc. So I'm grateful to the SHA for giving us so much information. If I may talk about this point, the square measures 3,000 square meters. And then 10% is the walkway. I want to know how many spectators can be accommodated by the area. You have got a lot of large-scale activities here, so I'm sure the spectator area capacity will be given an emphasis. Otherwise, you would not have given so much attention to the tinsel fabric cover. So please give me more information in this regard. Mrs. Choi. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. I think Mr. Leung would like to know about the area of the tinsel fabric cover over the spectator area. It is about 230 meters square. Before the expansion, the square can accommodate 1,000 spectators. And then for this cover, we believe that we can place 300 chairs. But of course, upon expansion, we believe that the maximum number of people that can be accommodated will be 1,500. Any other follow-up? No? All right. Next, Mr. Yu Siwing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the covered stage with the sound system, have you already got one currently? You haven't got one? So you're going to have a cover and you're going to add the sound system to the stage. Near to my home, I've got something similar. There is a park. Now, with such a facility, it will be open to applications. In the beginning, residents found it interesting to be able to watch these shows. But then, in the long run, they found that day in, day out, during the weekends, there are lots of activities going on, and that means that they will be bothered by the noise. As we can tell from the plans that you have got many buildings nearby. Once you have added the sound system, it will mean that it is a full-fledged stage. I want to know if you will impose a limit on the number of times that the stage can be used, and what about the hours of service? Have you considered such matters? I'm not against the project, but you need to strike a balance between causing nuisance to nearby residents and organizing activities. So just wonder if you can give me the details. Second question is also about the tensile fabric cover. I'm also worried about its ability to withstand the typhoons, and whether it will become worn and torn in the future, in the long run, and will it collapse easily. I want to know about the warranty period, and if something untoward happens, whose responsibility would it be? Would it be the contractor, or the department, or the LCSD? I'm worried that this may give rise to problems. If the cover is to collapse, it won't be a minor event.
Mr. Lee, the Chairman, I thank member for the question. I answered the first one. The sound systems currently is absent. As Mr. Lee said that we have about 100 people using it to organize activities, especially major ones. Sound system is very important to them. The stage faces east because the sound will go towards the west. If the stage faces north, then across the road, residents will be able to hear the sound. We're talking about just a basic sound system, so that organizers don't have to hire a sound system and use the basic one we provided. We have a number of activities organized. We use more amplifiers at a lower volume instead of large amplifiers that may cause nuisance to residents nearby. We have reached consensus with the LCSD, and we will put in place certain requirements on the organizers. And maybe at the beginning you don't know whether there will be nuisance, you'll be more relaxed. And later, when events are more and more frequent, then you have to start controlling it, because you can then explain to residents that there is some kind of control when they complain about noise. We are aware of that. That's why we have to include sound system in the scope of the project. We have put careful consideration in it. Out of the 100 activities, there are many different types of sound systems being used. There will be better management if one single system is put in it. Well, I actually suffer from it. That's why I know. Second question. I thank the member for the question. That is in relation to wear and tear of the cover. Thank you for the reminder. We will get more information from the supplier and the contractor. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, this agenda item will end. But before I do that, yes? Well, just now you said this will end, so I immediately shoot my hand up. So do you support the administration's proposal? Do you endorse their suggestion to submit it to the PWSC and the FC in the next legislative year? Yes, thank you. Next, review of the Hotel and Guesthouse Accommodation Ordinance. Let's invite the administration to join us first. We have with us Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. Zhang Dak-sing, Director of Home Affairs, Mrs. Pamela Tan, and Deputy Director of Home Affairs, Mr. Franco Kwok. Thank you. Perhaps I will first ask the administration, the Secretary, Mr. Zhang, to walk us through the paper. The Secretariat has prepared an updated background brief. It's number CB bracket 2435/13-14 bracket 1973/13-14 bracket 04. Previously, we have issued a consultation document setting out a number of suggestions under our proposal. We are here to listen to the views of members. In recent years, the public has been concerned about the regulation of guest houses and hotels because there are safety concerns and unsafe ones should be phased out. Whereas when these guest houses are located in residential areas, they may cause nuisance and inconvenience to residents. We have taken on board enforcement experience and views of the public. We now come up with a proposal to enhance our enforcement capacities to increase our enforcement effectiveness. The Office of Licensing Authority has in recent times upped our enforcement action. The OLA has staged close to 10,000 operations. It's 3 times the number in 2013. However, we have encountered great difficulties and challenges. Operators of these guest houses are more alert. It's getting more difficult for our officers to enter the premises. Unless they are caught red-handed, there is very often insufficient admissible evidence to institute prosecutions. So we propose to provide for deeming provisions and to empower the authority to apply for warrants to enter the premises in order to improve our enforcement effectiveness. We also propose heavier penalties and including applying for a closure order when there is a second conviction. In order to better protect the safety of lodgers and the public, we propose a number of additional requirements. Say, for example, third-party insurance. We understand that guest houses pose a nuisance to residents in the same building. Currently, the OLA can only refuse the issuance of a license when the law is broken or when the relevant safety regulations related to fire services has been breached. The residents may initiate civil litigations. That itself, however, is time-consuming and costly. So we propose to introduce legislative amendments to empower the licensing office to refuse to issue or renew licenses if there are stipulations in the DMC stating that certain activities are not allowed. We would like to hear from the public before we arrive at our decision. It's been a few weeks since the consultation. We visited 7 district councils. In general, the recommendations and proposals in the consultation are well received. We will continue to visit district councils and meet with relevant parties to listen to views. Thank you. Who would like to ask questions? We have 8. Ann Chang, Alice Mack, Deputy Chairman, Frankie Yik, Yu Siwing, Kawai Kong, myself, and Wong King. Anyone else? Long Che Chan. So quite a number of members. 4 minutes, answer and questions included. We may have a second round. First, Ms. Ann Chang. Thank you. I've read the report. Sorry, I mean the consultation document. I would like to ask, when it comes to district consultation, well, I know that you will, under A, do something about the DMC. B is about district consultation. There is the district office or set up a statutory organization. So which is more effective, more efficient, and least expensive? The purpose of the consultation is for us to collect views before we make a choice. If we're talking about being efficient, it won't be C because it involves a legislative amendment, and I don't know how long it will take. Under A, if we only listen to the district officer, that means there is no representation of the public. We would like to hear from everyone. As you know, it's just like the paternity leave. There has been over a decade of discussions, and even when and there is also another lengthy discussion in the Labour Advisory Board before it comes to LegCo. And the public is still in the dark about when they are going to get the 3-day paternity leave. Please come back to the issue. Do you remember that we're talking about helping the street sleepers to give them a better environment in Yang Ma Te? Do you remember? It has taken a long time, and in the end, it's still on the drawing board. So I don't know when it comes to legislative amendment or legislation, whether it will actually take off the ground. There are problems with licensed guest houses or unlicensed guest houses because they have caused inconvenience in a residential area. I have posted something on Facebook to listen to views, and immediately someone posts something. And that person told me that in the next building, there is a guest house. Well, not the big next building, but next to his flat, there is a guest house. And in the middle of the night, someone knocked on his door asking if there is any room available. That itself is a nuisance. So you should incline towards a proposal that is the quickest, simplest, and cheapest to deal with this matter. Well, if it's just consultation by the district officer, I don't know which one will be more effective, option 1 or option 2. Let's wait till we have heard from the public. In principle, I support this, and I want it to be quick. Next, Miss Alice Mack. I welcome this consultation, because when it comes to unlicensed guest houses and the nuisance they cause, we've been suffering for a long time. So we welcome the consultation and the review. And I read from the document and issue DMC, which is something we have spoken about. Well, whether the guest house can still get a license if it's a breach of the DMC, I'm happy to see this point touched in the document. And I have a number of issues to raise related to the DMC. If it's clearly stipulated in the DMC that is forbidden, that's simple. What about those offering a gray area? I see that there are 3 proposals. The simplest one is local consultation by district officers. But how can you ensure ample opportunity is given for local residents to express their views? I know that even before we have a statutory organization to collect views, we need at least an independent panel to consider views so that they can express their views during a license application.
If the DMC permits the establishment of a guest house, I wonder if it will result in the relocation of guest houses from other buildings whose DMC doesn't allow them to such a building, and then there will be an excessive number of guest houses in the same building. So can the director elaborate on this? Because in this case it means that there will be 10 instead of just 5 guest houses, and then residents will find it very disturbing. So in the case of a building where the DMC permits, then what can be done? Now, for residents who live in a building where the DMC permits the guest houses to be set up, if they don't want to have guest houses, what can they do? Now, for DMC, which is not so strictly drafted, then of course there would be problems with safety and nuisance. Before the OLA is to grant a license, it will make sure that the total number of occupants will not exceed the maximum allowed by the building department. So the safety issue should not be a problem. So I think Ms. Mack is more concerned about the nuisance. Now, we are saying that other than looking at the DMC, even if the DMC is not clear about the status, we'll still be interested to find out about the local views. In this way, there can be checks and balances. Whether we adopt option 1, option 2, or option 3, we'll still be able to get a picture about the local sentiments. Well, I don't want to see a scenario in which a DMC is not clear about the matter, and then the building will get lots of guest houses relocated from elsewhere, so that the regime would just result in negative outcome to such building owners instead of positive ones. Thank you, Kenneth Chen. The Civic Party is in support of the proposal to fine-tune the legislation so as to afford greater safeguards for the smaller landowners. I hope the administration will be responsive to the public sentiments. In the beginning, the administration said that the DMC is a private contract, and it appeared that the administration wasn't too keen to pick up this point. Now there is a change in the government's position, and this is a welcoming move because we've got 200 plus buildings which fall into this category. And I want to say that it is important to provide a channel to address the grievance. Currently, there is an appeal board, but then there's more for the applicant whose application has been turned down. What about affected residents so that they can have the rights and interests being safeguarded? So please consider such matters. I think we need to consider such points before we speak our mind on the three options. Now, to us, it seems that we're going to pick one out of the three options. Anybody who's familiar with public administration will find that things are not as simple as that. Just like if three of your loved ones fall into the waters, you're asked who to save first. I think it will be difficult to say that you get one at the expense of the other. Now, probably at the district level, at the district council level as well. I think in the case of the liquor licensing work, the liquor licensing board is a statutory body, and we can trust that it can strike a balance. So there is an appeal mechanism to make sure that the applicants find that it is fair, but at the same time you must allow for the local sentiments to be expressed so that the grievance can be addressed. I think we need to put our heads together. I don't want to give citizens the impression that for option 3 it is too complicated, too time-consuming. Legislators may not support the idea, and then their interests cannot be safeguarded. I hope we can make sure that everybody would like to give the best safeguards. And I don't think that there would be too many obstacles along the way in the legislative work. So please try to strike a balance, but please try to tighten up the monitoring and the regulation. I don't think we should be forced to take one out of the three options. Instead, we should ask the administration to put together the merits in each of the three options into one single proposal. Director. As to whether citizens should have the right to appeal other than the aggrieved applicant, well, I think if we allow for a channel to address grievance in the new mechanism, then of course general citizens should also be allowed to lodge an appeal. Then the appeal board will also hear appeals from citizens. But then this is not directly related to options 1, 2, and 3. So please don't mistake that only under option 3 can citizens lodge an appeal. For option 1 or 2, even if there is approval for a license, but then if a citizen thinks that it is unfair, then he may still lodge an appeal. Mr. Frankie Yik. I recall that, and as the Deputy Chair has said, the administration seemed to dismiss the role to be played by the administration in the case of a DMC dispute. I welcome this paper. It is a big step forward. As to the three options, I think we better await the consultation outcome. Ms. Alex Alice Mack raised a very interesting point. Now, if the DMC permits and if it can meet the building safety requirements and the fire services requirements, then you have to grant approval. Say the DMC permits a guest house to be established, and if the fire safety and building safety requirements are met, then it means you can't refuse. As it stands, we can't refuse. Now, the consultation document says that we should also take on board the local views. Now, in theory, you have to give approval. Now, you are saying that even if in theory it should be approved, you should still listen to the views of the residents. Next, Mr. Yu Siwing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also agree that we should step up our control and we should enhance the penalties against the unlicensed guest houses. And then if a DMC permits commercial activities, then please allow them to exist, and please also consult the local views. I'm more concerned about the case of the licensed guest houses. If a guest house is licensed, whether it is located in a commercial building or not, understand in the future you will continue to consult the public, then I can see for myself that the majority of such guest houses have to be closed, because residents of course don't want to have a guest house in their building causing nuisance to them, unless we're talking about a building which has got 50% or more of its space being turned into guest houses. I am familiar with this matter. Guest houses have been in existence for a long time. They were first started decades ago. Some overseas Chinese would rather stay in a guest house than live in a hotel, so to save sufficient money to send back home. And then there are also travelers who were bringing with them parallel imports. And I think the guest houses have been in place for a long time. And both the operator, the owner, as well as the staff members are elderly members. If you cause a spate of closure of their guest houses, then many elderly people will lose their jobs. So for those guest houses which are already in existence, I just wonder if you can handle them in a special approach. We had something similar in the past, like the unauthorized structures, or for the fire services installations in our buildings. You did provide for a grace period. Now, if you want to find out about the local sentiments, if the application is met with opposition, then what are you going to do concerning the established guest houses which have been in operation for decades? Director, certainly will consider the different views from different stakeholders in the consultation exercise. I think you can see that before we enact a bill or before we bring it into effect, we do provide for a grace period or transitional period. The purpose of the exercise isn't to eradicate all guest houses. They do play a role, especially in the tourism industry. We just want to minimize the nuisance caused by guest houses to the daily lives of our citizens. That should be the overriding principle. I hope you can draw a line between the established guest houses, existing guest houses, and the newcomers. Maybe you can have provisions catering for the needs of the existing guest houses. Please do not adopt a broad brush approach. Otherwise, at least 80% of them will have to be closed. Any reply? Yes, Mr. Chairman. In the next stage, when we work on the specific details, I think we can consider such a concern and we can introduce appropriate provisions. Mr. Kwok, the ordinance has been in place for 23 years, and this has infuriated many owners' corporations. Now, it was the HAD which invited the owners to set up owners' corporations, and yet it is exactly the HAD which is licensing the guest houses, causing nuisance. So it is but right to incorporate local views when it comes to licensing. And then the interpretation of the DMC should be the responsibility of the applicant or the operator. It will be very costly to take somebody to court, so your recommendation will reduce the need to take the other party to court. Now, for Ms. Mack's question, if a building hasn't got a DMC to protect the owners from guest houses, if they start to find that many guest houses are to be set up in a building, now in some cases 3 would be the maximum, or 10 would be the maximum, or 1 would be the maximum number of guest houses that citizens or the residents can tolerate, then what will happen? Now for LLB, they say that they will attach importance to public views, but what weight will be given to the public views? I'm sure in some way an application will be met with opposition. Would you always say no whenever there is an opposition or an objection? So I wonder how you're going to strike a balance. And then for unlicensed guest houses, for licensed ones, we've got 1,600, and then 1,222 are located in private residential buildings. For unlicensed premises, I think there are many more than this number. You're going to enhance the penalties, but can you really identify them, persuade them, and entice them to refrain from unlicensed guest houses? We have only got 161 cases of conviction despite the inspection, so it would not be effective in deterring the unlicensed operations.
Director, the basic principle is that the decision of license renewal has to be fair and reasonable. Is it the case that where there is one objection, the license will be refused? Well, apart from that, the reason of objection is equally important. There will be a consideration of whether a license should be renewed or issued, and they will also, apart from taking into account the number of objections, the reason for objecting the application too. Well, under the mechanism, they will invite objectors and applicants to state their case, but there are concerns. We are aware of that. We will put in place some measures to address them. In relation to your second point, the number, there are a lot of inspections, enforcement actions, but very few prosecution cases. Well, there are a number of issues in the consultation document in this regard. We aim at improving our enforcement action to make it more effective. It's my turn. In principle, I support the administration's effort to introduce new measures. Licensed guest houses have made contributions to Hong Kong, in particular tourism, and for visitors who are on a smaller budget. We're talking about licensed and unlicensed guest houses together, millions of days, millions of room days over a year. And if you put in place restrictions and limitations, it will make the environment more difficult for them. That itself is not serious. What's serious is that whether the administration has taken into consideration the needs of our visitors, because some of them are traveling on a lower budget, so they need affordable accommodation. Will the administration consider providing land, take into account other factors, say for example converting industrial commercial buildings into guest houses to provide more rooms? So you need to address the problems and come up with a solution. I'd like to hear from the administration. Director, when it comes to supporting facilities in relation to tourism, well, we have the Policy Bureau, which is the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau that is responsible for tourism mainly. When we are formulating legislation, we obtain the information from the relevant Policy Bureau. Relevant parties are aware of the information learned from discussions that have already taken place. You're aware of it, but it doesn't mean that the problems are resolved. There may be 2 million visitors who cannot find accommodation. What are they supposed to do? Staying in the streets, staying in hospitals, fast food shops, libraries? Secretary, guest houses provide about 10% of the total number of rooms provided by hotels and guest houses. If all the suggestions are adopted, it doesn't mean that all the guest houses will have to close down. The concerns expressed by Mr. Yu will be considered by us as well. When we launched the consultation paper, we have already discussed with other government departments. The administration will supply more land to provide more hotel rooms. Mr. Wong Kok-hing. The administration will introduce improvement measures in the licensing regime. I welcome that. Out of the 3 proposals, 3 options, I prefer the first one because it is the simplest, easiest and cheapest. District officers know the district very well. If they are responsible for dealing with it, it will be better because I think they will take into account the local sentiment and the historical background of the district. It will be more it will be quicker for them to deal with it. Option 2 is good, but it takes time, and more time will be taken. But for option 3, as you see that with filibustering here in the LegCo, government work has been delayed. if you wait for the LegCo to deal with legislative amendment, it will be a waste of time. So I think that you should first adopt option 1 with a review in 1 or 2 years. If it's proved to be problematic, then you consider options 2 or 3. What needs to be done now is the interface problems between guest houses owners and residents, and there are also fire safety issues. My observation is that the majority of the problems come from mixed-use buildings, that is, commercial cum residential buildings. These buildings are usually old ones, not new. If it's a new commercial building or a new residential building, we don't have as many a problem. So I hope that first you will adopt option 1, for it is cheaper and more efficient, and cheaper and simpler. So do you incline to using option 1 first? When it comes to visitors who do not want to stay in hotels because they want cheaper accommodation, have you considered B&Bs? There are 3 options in the consultation paper. We will listen to views on the 3 options. It's only been 2 weeks since the start of the consultation. It's not appropriate for me to say which option we prefer. Under the current licensing regime, we do not take into account the views of the residents. And in the consultation paper, we ask whether local views should be taken into account. When it comes to B&B, well, it's a different issue. In a multi-story building, whether it's appropriate to have B&B, I think we have to carefully consider. When I talk about a B&B, is not in densely populated areas, but in rural areas. In densely populated areas, there will be nuisance caused by guest houses. With a blooming tourism industry, if you tighten the legislation, there will be other problems. Only hotels are able to provide accommodation, not the smaller companies. An issue addressed or touched on by the consultation is that when there is an operator, well, when it's in the same area as a hotel, when it's in a residential area, when and there are objections from the resident, and it's a clear contravention of the DMC, then you will refuse their application. What about rental of village of small houses in new territories villages? Since there are many requirements building structure, fire services, installations. These places may not meet them all. Would you break down the different types under the ordinance? Say, for example, small guest houses, hotels. So will you break down these different types of accommodations in smaller groups and put in place the relevant conditions and requirements? Member asked whether, if all the proposals are adopted, the supply of budget accommodation will be affected. We made these proposals because we would like to strike a balance. We will be able to address the needs of the tourism industry and take into account the aspirations of residents, the fact that they don't want to be disturbed. And as to whether there will be different types under the licensing regime, well, we do not differentiate that in the consultation. Our proposal is simple, just to make a distinction between hotel accommodation and guest house accommodation. We have fire safety requirements and building structure requirements. We cannot budge, we cannot compromise because we're talking about safety. Even the accommodation is in the rural area, if it's B&B, hostel or guest house, all these requirements, building structure and fire safety will have to be met. I know that some rural parties are considering this, but we refuse to budge when it comes to safety. Mr. Ray Chan. I, of course, support the administration's proposal to tighten this ordinance. But my problem is that this consultation is a bit short and is the summer. We can't even have a public hearing because the consultation will end at the end of August.
My views may be different from those of other colleagues. I think we have to take a serious examination of our receiving capacity when it comes to the tourism industry, rather than looking at enhancing the capacity of our guest houses solely. Perhaps we say that it is for the CED Bureau. I think by tightening up the licensing conditions, there will be greater difficulties in getting a proper license. Now, if you have got more and more visitors coming and yet you have got fewer guest houses, now you have to find ways to accommodate the visitors. You won't turn them away, you won't allow them to sleep rough, and then I'm afraid there will just be more and more unlicensed guest houses. On the other hand, I think you need to enhance the licensing regime, say for example introduction of deeming provisions. Otherwise, if you tighten up the control, you're just turning the operators underground. Have you ever assessed the implications? Say for example, you are increasing your powers. You may be more successful in having decoy operations. Would you then need more manpower? Now you have got more than 10,000 inspections, but you have only got 100 plus convictions. So do we need more manpower? And then paragraph 4.5 of the consultation document. Any premises which are found to be offering or having provided short-term sleeping accommodation at a price shall be deemed to be used as a guest house. Say, for example, if I upload some information onto the website saying that I have a room available, will it be deemed to be a guest house? Please clarify this point. You go on to say that the property owner, tenant, or occupier of the premises concerned shall also be deemed to be the operator of the guest house. In other words, you won't settle for having the front man being arrested and not the mastermind behind the scene. We rely on circumstantial evidence to take the person to court. For example, there is extensive publicity on the website for a unlicensed guest house, or when we go there, we see that the layout plan is such that it looks like a guest house, or you see a large number of bath towels, a large number of toothpastes, etc. Or you have got the guest houses for pregnant ladies and newborn babies. We have seen that they have got a lot of utensils and equipment for taking care of newborn babies and pregnant mothers. Now we say that there should be deeming provision. Even property owners, tenants, or occupiers should be deemed to be the operator. We want to have this one because in this way it's easier to bring the actual operators to justice. For the bona fide landowners, I don't think they need to worry because the owners of proof still rests with the prosecutor. Now, if the landlord can prove his innocence, then I think he will not be deemed as the operator and will not then be convicted. Say, for example, if he can show a genuine tenancy agreement, then it will be a very good piece of evidence, and then it will be up to the prosecutor to prove whether it is a forged document, whether it's a fake arrangement or not. Would you agree that the consultation period is too short, given that it is within the summer holiday? We have got 2 months' time. This is the normal sort of time frame for government consultation documents. Now, for this exercise, we have got very specific proposals rather than vague or broad proposals. So we don't think that 2 months will be too short a period of time. We want to tackle the issue of unlicensed guest houses. We believe that as a result of the safety implications, there's an urgency. Anybody else wishing to ask questions for the first time? If not, then the second round, 2 minutes each for the time being. 3 members would like to ask questions. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we are grateful to the Secretary for Home Affairs for promising to consider my proposal. Now, according to your original proposals, a large number of the guest houses will have to close, and then there will be lots of unemployment. And then even if it accounts for 5% of the rooms only, it will still have a serious impact on the tourism industry. Now, for the guest houses we've got now, we want them to become licensed guest houses. I think you can try to convert them into properly run guest houses, just like in the case of the Agriculture and Fisheries Department's efforts. Can you not sort of try to help them to be relocated in a converted industrial building? Don't say that it is the business of the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau and then you can stay away from it. Now, for the penalties, we want to enhance the penalties, but then it won't be meaningful. because it is up to the court to specify the fine. Maybe it's just a matter of a few $1,000s. We don't always get a lengthy imprisonment sentence, at most just a few weeks. So can you not sort of impose a minimum penalty level? It's meaningless if you impose a maximum fine. If you provide for a maximum fine of a few $1 million, the stricter the requirements, the more unlicensed guest houses you will get. So it won't be meaningful if you just adhere to the existing requirements. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, we asked questions about the broad principles. The FTU has already indicated our support. Now I come to some minor points. The consultation period is too brief, and have you publicized the document? You know about the owners' corporations. Now, if the guest house operators are very proactive in responding to the consultation document, while on the other hand the owners' corporations are not too aware of this paper, then the result would be lopsided. Other than implementing the recommendations in the report or the document, I want to know whether you're going to introduce a code of practice for the licensed guest houses. For residential buildings in particular, they have got their own security system. Either you open the door with a key or you have to key in the password. Some guest houses just give out the password openly on the website, and then this will compromise the security and safety of the building. So are you going to disallow such a practice in the code of practice so that the residents and the operators won't always be put in a polarized position? Well, for the consultation document, we've already sent out copies to the owners' corporations, owners' committees, or where buildings have got residents' organizations. So we look forward to the feedback to the consultation document for our reference. As to whether we are going to draw up codes of practice so as to facilitate harmonious coexistence of both the residents and the operators, well, I think a harmonious relationship will be very important in such a matter. Deputy Chair, well, I have talked to the officials concerning the consultation period. I do understand the constraints. Usually you get 8 weeks or 2 months. Both the chair and myself would like to organize a public hearing so that the stakeholders, either the operators or the affected residents, can come forward to speak to us. Now we are approaching the summer holiday, so I wonder if the Secretary can agree with me. Now we want to organize a public hearing. Maybe that will take place in September. Can you, despite the expiry of the deadline, take on board the views expressed at a September hearing? Though it formally takes place after the deadline, would you still take on board our views? Director or SHA, strictly speaking, views expressed after the consultation period will not be views collected within the consultation period, but we always attach a lot of importance to public views. Now, we have taken the initiative to go to the district councils and go to the stakeholders to consult the views. So if in future there are occasions on which the operators or the residents would like to express their views, we won't simply dismiss them on the ground of the timing. If we can accommodate the views, we won't be drawing a line after the deadline and say that the views so expressed will not be considered at all. Now, we do have a work plan. After consultation period, we will look at the views expressed within the consultation period, and then on that basis, we'll try to amend the existing legislation. We have to come back to present a bill to you. Now, the HAP has to consider the bill, and if you would like to listen to the public so as to facilitate the scrutiny of your bill, certainly you can do so. But then, as the executive, when we have set a deadline for the consultation exercise, of course, we should mainly be looking at the views expressed within the consultation period. Well, we tried to take up the matter with the administration before the meeting. We have been told that it will be difficult to extend the consultation period, but then the LegCo can provide a good platform to collect public views and to show the public that we are concerned. So can we not do it on two fronts? First of all, via the Secretariat, we'll try to see if we can arrange for a meeting before the end of the consultation period. That is, if we can form a quorum to hold a public hearing. At the same time, I hope that the administration can, in the event that we can't hold a meeting before the deadline, and if we are able to hold a hearing soon after, shortly after the deadline, I hope you will still take on board our views, or the views expressed at a public hearing. So we should try to accommodate each other. But then we were supposed to hold this meeting before the commencement of the consultation period. But then as a result of the council business, we have deferred today's meeting. So I wonder if you can agree with me on both items. We do welcome a public hearing before the deadline expires. If you hold a public hearing after the expiry of the deadline, we still send somebody to attend your public hearing. Of course, we try to do it, say, early September, soon after the deadline. We don't want to hold up your work because you do want to draft a bill, right?
After the consultation, we hope the administration will revert to the panel about the result. We will closely communicate with you. Any other views from members? If not, that's the end of this agenda item. Next is item 5. Any other business? Mr. Yu Si Wei. When do you think we will be able to hold a public hearing? Perhaps we will circulate the paper. Hopefully we will be able to do it before the 28th of August. That will be better. If not, we'll move on to any other business. No other business. Since this is the last meeting, last regular meeting of this legislative year, I thank you all for your support over the past year. I wish you a happy holiday. Thank you.